So, folks, we got to talk about the aftermath of the Calais SCOTUS decision, of course. And I've described the era we are now in as an era of basically total political warfare. And I mean, even Rachel Maddow is recognizing that, like, oh yeah, like the entire system has now changed. The entire political ecosystem is different. She ran a pretty sizable segment on this on her show the other day, and let's just take a quick look at some of that.
Democrats currently hold about 24 congressional seats in the American South. On this map, those are the islands of blue. Now that the Supreme Court has cleared the way for Republicans to erase majority-minority districts by gutting the Voting Rights Act, some estimates say Republicans could quickly pick up a minimum of half those seats, at least a dozen. People who study this thing say that by 2028, Republicans could draw maps that would give them as many as 19 of those seats in the House. One analysis shows the Congressional Black Caucus shrinking by as much as a third. That's the risk. That's what Democrats are looking at if they do nothing. But what if Democrats fight back with every single thing they've got? What if Democrats everywhere they can draw maps that maximally favor them? The voting rights group Fair Fight Action estimates that Democrats could pick up 10 seats by 2028. Democrats could pick up 10 seats using maps drawn in states where Democrats control the state legislature. If Democrats gain control of more state legislatures, say this year in November, if they win in places like, say, Wisconsin, they could pick up as many as 22 seats, which would all but erase any advantage Republicans are about to give themselves by losing the Voting Rights Act's protections. The first thing that means is that races for state legislature, state House and state Senate this year just got way more important.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pause it right there because she's right. And this is also one of the reasons that I've been telling you guys over and over and over again. I've been beating this drum relentlessly. We need to get organized in our local areas because we need to be preparing not just for, you know, congressional seats, but also for our local state races. We're now in an era where, like, we need to try and shore up any and all state legislatures across the country so that we can actually fulfill this threat, right? Because the entire point of where we're at right now has been summed up pretty nicely, I think, by AOC, and I actually don't have that clip teed up. But essentially what she says in the specific clip I'm thinking of, she talks about the fact that for years, Democrats have been trying to ban partisan gerrymandering. Bills have been advanced by the Democratic Party and different Democrats in Congress to make partisan gerrymandering illegal. At every single opportunity, Republicans have shot them down and refused to advance them or voted against them.
What do you make of Republicans saying that Virginia, you guys getting, Democrats getting 10 for 1 is totally unconstitutional and wrong?
Democrats have attempted and asked Republicans for 10 years to ban partisan gerrymandering. And for 10 years, Republicans have said no. Republicans have fought for partisan gerrymanders across the United States of America, and these are the rules that they have set. And so if the Republican Party wanted to start this, they did this in North Carolina. They drew out 3 Democratic members of Congress in North Carolina. They drew out in Texas. They redid Texas. What they're just mad at is that they have been accustomed to a Democratic Party that rolls over, doesn't fight, and takes everything sitting down. And what they're mad at right now is that we are here in a new day. And we have been asking the Democratic Party to stand up and fight, and now they did, and now the Republican Party doesn't like the fact that they are fighting against someone who actually will stand up for the American people. So if Republicans decide that they would like to revisit a ban on partisan gerrymandering, I welcome them. We have the bill right here to end this all today, but they don't want to because they like pursuing and continuing to enact an unfair electoral landscape. And so we have an obligation to defend ourselves.
And the issue here is, of course, you have a lot of Republicans crying that different states have, gerrymandered to favor Democrats, etc. But at every turn, even as this has escalated, up until the VRA got struck down, Democrats had been extending a hand to be like, we will vote with you to end partisan gerrymandering in this country. And Republicans have just spat at the idea. And so we're getting into an era of political polarization. And I think literally the only way we get out of it is by beating them at the gerrymander game. Because there is no, Democrats can't just say, okay, we won't gerrymander, and then Republicans continue to gerrymander. That only cedes more and more power to Republicans. Okay? And so, where we're going with this is kind of a redrawing of, the Union and Confederate lines all over again. That's what the Alito court, or the John Roberts court, has really unleashed upon us, And this is going to go really poorly for basically everybody. Nothing good comes out of this. But the least bad option right now is for Democrats to escalate. And hopefully, by beating Republicans at this very stupid game that they have insisted on playing, we can get a ban on partisan gerrymandering. That is potentially the best possible outcome. But right now, we are in an arms race. We are in an arms race. And any and all tools at our disposal, local organizing, statewide organizations, all of it is getting retooled right now specifically for this purpose. It's why you even have Hakeem Jeffries shaking off his, apathetic stupor to pretend to give a shit.
Out, Sally.
A cold civil war? No, we're not in a civil war. We're just the political polarization is getting worse. In a long-term time scale, if that continues to go in those opposite directions, eventually a push will come to a shove, and it could turn into that. But we're nowhere close to an actual civil war right now. But where we are is Republicans are trying to do a major power grab. They're trying to basically do a soft coup of this country. They're trying to disenfranchise us, the left. And this is really fucking bad. But the place that we should be taking hope in is in our ability as working people to organize. Republicans aren't out there, organizing and marching en masse on No King's Day. Maybe you got some former MAGA folks. Maybe you've got some never Trump Republicans or whatever. But by and large, it's us. It's people on the left organizing and fighting and showing up. And we need to start doing that not just for the odd day of mass action. We need to start showing up consistently on the local level in order to build political power that can stop the runaway train that is the GOP. Okay? And I mean, she's right. If you look at that map that she showed on screen here, across the entirety of the South, this is what is possible. And this is exactly what Republicans are going to aim for. They're going to aim to eliminate every single blue district that they can. Every single one. So we need to be prepared for that. And that is going to entail Democrats actually getting down and dirty and slinging some mud. It's going to entail using all the tools at our disposal. And that includes winning on a state-by-state level. Because for a very long time, right, essentially, there has been a neglect of state-level politics by the Democratic Party for quite a while. It's how Republicans were able to win state legislature after state legislature after state legislature. And that consolidation of power at the state level has, up until now, really hamstrung democratic organizing in this country. And I just want to tell you guys, we need to fight back against that specifically. Because national Dems are not going to rush in and save us. It has to be us. We're the ones who got to save ourselves. And I know that is terribly inconvenient and ridiculously infuriating, but that is what we got to do. So let's watch the rest of this real quick.
As much as a third. That's the risk. That's what Democrats are looking at if they do nothing.
True. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer both need to go because they are in large part responsible for what, the state of play right now. Like the fact that they sat on their asses and refused to actually fight Republicans for the last 2 years has, and longer than that. Like Chuck Schumer's been in a leadership position for quite some time, and his entire strategy is basically do nothing and make sure, aid continues to flow to Israel. Like those are his top two concerns. Like, he needs to be gone yesterday. And, Hakeem Jeffries is not much better.
But what if Democrats fight back with every single thing they've got? What if Democrats...
at this point, even the Baileys are sharpening their pitchforks. Exactly, Ron Jack.
Everywhere they can, draw maps that maximally favor them. The voting rights group Fair Fight Action estimates that Democrats could pick up 10 seats by 2028. Democrats could pick up 10 seats using maps drawn in states where Democrats control the state legislature. If Democrats gain control of more state legislatures, say this year in November, if they win in places like, say, Wisconsin, they could pick up as many as 22 seats, which would all but erase any advantage Republicans are about to give themselves by losing the Voting Rights Act's protections. The first thing that means is that races for state legislature, state House and state Senate this year just got way more important. In the immediate run, and the right here, right now, Democrats are already taking steps to protect what they have to try to expand the map. Today, the Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, said he's already talking to Democratic officials in his home state of New York to come up with a plan for new maps there in time for 2028. He said today, quote, "This is just the beginning. Across the nation, we will sue, we will redraw, and we will win."
This is how grave and dire the threat is. Hakeem Jeffries has actually got off his ass to do something. There's a lot of blame to be put on the leadership of the Democratic Party for where we are right now as a country. But, you can tell, oh no. Oh no, this is if you have not been able to fully understand or comprehend how bad this Supreme Court decision has been and will be, Hakeem Jeffries is getting off his ass. It threatens the entirety of every closely held belief of status quo Democrats. They can't afford to sit this one out.
The "we will sue" part of that strategy is key, because Democrats and voting rights groups are also pushing back in the courts wherever they can. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the Republican governor of Louisiana just took the extraordinary step of announcing it was an emergency and stopping an election that was already underway, specifically so his state can draw new maps that favor Republicans and that disfavor black voters.
What has happened in the span of just a handful of days since that Calais got handed down by the SCOTUS? Republicans are moving fast, and I think it's taking Democratic leadership by surprise. A lot of them just want to go to brunch, they want to chill, they want to believe everything's going to go back to normal, and they want to be civil to their colleagues or whatever. But at the first available opportunity, these chuckle fucks are going and trying to disenfranchise an entire state worth of African American voters. And I think actions like that don't go unnoticed, even by the most complacent Democrats in the party right now. And that, why are they surprised? Well, they're surprised because all these complacent motherfuckers in the Democratic Party who've been around for years, They look at these guys and they're like, well, but they're our friends. Why would they do that? The only time they've ever really cared to play hardball is against the left wing of the party for protesting genocide, you know? And I think we're gonna see them pivot here because, frankly, a post-Voting Rights Act world is not something that they can sit back and just like go back to brunch about. Yeah, their gravy train is in danger, but also existentially, the Democratic Party is in danger. Because if you eliminate African American voters, like the Democratic Party is basically like kneecapped.
Louisiana. Today, a coalition of voters and voting rights groups sued the governor for stopping those elections after Louisianans had already started to vote. In a statement announcing the lawsuit, they said, by attempting to suspend an ongoing election, state officials are creating confusion, undermining public trust, and placing partisan interests above the constitutional rights of Louisiana voters. Black voters in communities that have long fought for equal political representation should not be forced to bear the burden of unlawful power grabs designed to silence their voices. Elections belong to the people, not to politicians seeking to manipulate the rules.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're getting Republican governors, like, suspending elections. And where there is going to be significant fight within the Democratic Party, it's not going to come from leadership. It's going to come from disgruntled people running for office, right? This article went up like a day or so ago. House Democratic campaign arms endorsements frustrate Latino colleagues. And basically, this is talking about how the Congressional Hispanic Caucus is deeply frustrated with the National Democratic Party because the National Democratic Party is endorsing more conservative Democrats that are in the running as opposed to progressive Latino candidates. In particular, one of the candidates that is brought up here is the fact that the National Democratic establishment backed Assemblymember Jasmeet Baines. And then it came to light that Jasmeet Baines in California actually took like over 50 donations from the same corporations that donated to the Republican candidate. And she in turn is like claiming anyone criticizing her campaign is racist. It's a whole clusterfuck. But basically this semaphore piece is actually pretty good talking about this. Villegas is the candidate that the Latino caucus wanted to rally behind, and he is going to rally behind in this primary. But also we got a few other folks. Yeah. Pennsylvania, the DCCC backed Bob Brooks, who also earned the support of Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro, which tells you a lot. So basically, guys, the fight is going to continue within the Democratic Party, even as establishment Dems actually mobilize to try and fight Republicans. And I want you all to know this is our best opportunity, right? If you are on the left and you are interested in furthering leftist influence in Democratic politics, now is like the opportune time to organize and get involved with the Democratic Party to push them in a more progressive, more pro-socialist direction, right? Because what's happening here is effectively the Democratic Party, instead of just sitting on its laurels and focusing entirely on fighting the progressive wing of the party, which is up until now exactly what it was going to do, let the Republican Party implode and fight the progressives and then, you know, solidify their more conservative Dem power base, you know, a la the UK and Keir Starmer. But what is happening now with this Voting Rights Act decision essentially means that the Democratic Party has to go to war on two different fronts, or at least the establishment of the Democratic Party has to go to war on two fronts. And that means there is a lot more room to maneuver for progressives and socialists who want to move the party in a more progressive and populist direction to support working class voters. right? So all of this is very scary, but I also want you to understand it as an opportunity. It is an opportunity not just to fight against the overt racism of the Republican Party, but it's an opportunity to pick up a lot of allies and a lot of attention fighting for working class people and basic rights and human dignity for everyone. Now is the time to get involved with the Democratic Party. And I also just want to point out, if you are looking for Republican voters to break from Trump, that hasn't happened yet. And I find that to be a particularly disturbing thing. Over in Indiana right now, you've got a bunch of Trump-endorsed candidates that swept the field in tonight's primaries. Only one incumbent who opposed redistricting in Indiana is actually winning their election or their primary at the moment, and possibly two, but Deary and Copenhagen are 50-50 right now. So, like, if you're expecting like the Republican Party to crumple at this point in time, you are going to be sorely mistaken. All I have to say is that the movement and the energy right now is within the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is committed to the bit. And I want to share now, this is Stasha Rhodes, who's the executive director of United for Democracy. They gave kind of like a response to the Calais decision, and kind of how we are living now through an era where the Supreme Court has brought back the systems that allowed apartheid to thrive in America. And I just wanted to play this for you guys.
Congress has the power to write new rules, to set new standards, and to put forward a real plan to restore power to the people and to act on that plan. But they won't move on their own. They only move when people demand it. They move when the pressure is too great to ignore. And that's how change has always happened in this country. It's how we got the Voting Rights Act in the first place. And that's what we're building right now. We're organizing a demand, one that is large enough, loud enough, and unified enough that it cannot be ignored. That's why we're starting with something simple but powerful. A petition, a call from people across this country to their members of Congress. Do something. Deliver a plan and act on it to put power back in the hands of the people. And we're already seeing that momentum build. In just a few days, more than 100,000 people have added their names. This is how change begins. Not quietly, not in isolation, but with people raising their voices together and demanding something better. So tonight is about more than just understanding what the Calais decision held and what the Supreme Court said. It's about recognizing what's possible. It's about connecting the reality people are living every day to the changes we know are necessary at the system level. And it's about making clear that we are not going to accept a system that continues to leave people behind. We're going to organize, we are going to build, and we are going to demand a democracy that actually works for us. So if you haven't already, I want to ask you, add your name to the petition, share it, bring others in, send it to your friends, because this is how we build the kind of collective power that forces change. And this is just the beginning. We're building something bigger than this moment, something that brings people together across issues, across communities, and across this country to restore power where it belongs, with the people. Thank you.
Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And it comes down to the fact that we need to simply organize more people. It boils down to a numbers game. There are more of us than there are of them. And folks need to start realizing that there is an existential threat out there, and if we do not start showing up in the way that we are called to, in the way that this moment calls us to do, then we will be destroyed. Like, just straight up. No change has ever been wrought by sitting down and doing nothing. Change is forged by all of us showing up together and doing something about it. The Civil Rights Act wasn't passed because a bunch of people didn't give a shit. It was passed because a bunch of people actually cared and actually showed up. It was built on the backs of folks who showed up in small gatherings, in towns, in cities. It was built off of labor. It was built off of folks joining together in solidarity, with folks showing up for one another. And that's what we need to do now. Okay?
It's organizing and action that break the status quo. The bonus army and Hoover's reaction to it is what allowed FDR to come in and push through the New Deal.
Yep. It is always organizing that wrings out concessions. Because concessions are not freely given, they are taken. And like, any kind of organizing, any kind of future action that you see people talking about, whether it is signing petitions, boycotting, marching in protest, showing up for a 1 million man march on DC, like, all of these are built off of people, everyday people, showing up and organizing. And that's the thing. Anyone who is looking to build like an actual movement, it relies on showing up and organizing, doing the boring work of the humdrum work of like showing up and being known by people in your community, by like putting yourself out there, by carving out that time. And I know that it's hard, and I know that like the world is a mess right now, and I know that it can be really easy to be ground down into the dirt and just tune it all out. But we need folks to start giving a shit, because apartheid is back. Republicans won. They won the presidency, they won Congress, they won the Supreme Court, and they have undone a century of civil rights struggle to try and bring back and resurrect the fucking Confederacy. So ask yourself, what's the bare minimum you would do to end the Confederacy? Would you show up to a local meeting? Because the only way this stuff gets better is if we start showing up. So I hope you will. All that being said, folks, if you need help getting started, joining with your local Democrats or your local DSA, we can help you do that. Join our Discord, reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems, reach out to GamerG for help with your local DSA. If you don't want to join the Discord, you can go over to riverboat.gg, and you can usually find one or both of them over there during the show. And all that being said, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. Comments longer than 8 words really help in the algorithm. Tell people about the show. Really would love some help spreading the word. And also, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. Check it out. It is sexy. It is supportive. I'm actually wearing it right now. And you know what? It fits really, really well. So check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the description. And let's keep on going, folks.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, dating, plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.